Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Every Arkansan podcast. I'm Drew Davis, and this week we've got Tommy Covington from Cov's Kids. You're going to love his story. Well, Tommy, thank you for joining us here.
Absolutely.
We're so excited because you're the daredevil of the community. You like to get out there, but let's start off. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Tommy Covington, and I am originally from Little Rock. Became a Christ follower when I was 29, entered the ministry when I was 30, and did 20 years of full-time ministry really all over the world, and recently retired from that and started a nonprofit called Cov's Kids after my father. I watched my dad, when I was a little boy, reach out to kids who didn't have a dad, and he'd load them up in the back of his pickup truck before seatbelt laws, and take them to baseball practice and baseball games. And it was during a time I was 7 or 8 years old, and so it was really that impressionable time of my life. And my father always reached out to make sure that kids had an opportunity. So when I'm looking at the last 20 years of my life and what I'm going to do, I sat down and started dreaming about how I could impact the next generation that's coming up. And honestly, it happened when I was driving down the road and saw a kid in a creek fishing with a string and a hook from his mom's and some cheese from his mom's kitchen. And so I stopped and started talking to a bunch of kids and asking them, do you like to go hunting and fishing and all that? And they said, well, we don't have anybody to take us. And so that's how Cov's Kids was birthed. Now, my wife, I've been married for almost 30 years and have 2 kids that are all in when it comes to the craziness of what we do and how we reach out to our community.
So, Cov's Kids, reaching out to kids. So, what does that look like?
Well, we go into areas, we have chapters, 5 or 6 chapters all over the state of Arkansas, and we identify smaller areas, smaller towns. Let's take, for instance, Stuttgart. We found a man who is the vice principal, of one of the elementary schools in Stuttgart. And he has a huge heart. His name's Matt Euler, amazing young man. Married, no kids. And so he has tons of kids in his elementary school that he's reaching out and helping already. And so we met with him, came alongside of him and said, look, this is what we do. This is what we have to offer. We allow kids, if they do the right things and make the right choices, if they stay out of trouble at home and at school, if they're do community service work, if they're keeping their grades up, then we would allow them to go on duck hunting outings, deer hunting, camping, turkey hunting, all types of hunting and fishing. And so we screen the kids. It's an extensive screening process because we want them to buy in. Mm-hmm. We want their guardian to really buy in to the process. And then we have mentors inside of these little towns that mentor the kids. And so we'll have a lead person, and then that lead person will have mentors underneath him. And so we can affect as many as 50, 60 kids in a small town. And it really makes a big splash.
So tell me, we live in Little Rock, and so I'm used to these kids that very rarely get out into nature or whatever. What's that mean to a kid to get out and do something like that?
I get asked that question a lot, especially here in Little Rock. And actually had one guy say to me that kids are, in Little Rock, they don't want to hunt, they don't want to fish. Well, the next time you run into one of these kids out here, ask them if they'd like to go fishing. A kid is a kid is a kid, regardless if they're in Little Rock or they're in Chicago or they're in Stuttgart, Arkansas. a kid just wants to be a kid. A kid wants someone to come alongside of them and show them some attention, to be able to bring them along in life and go through life with them.
And what does it look like for a typical volunteer? Are you looking for someone specific or just a...
It's a good question. Just the other day, I had a man contact me, and he is a well-known attorney here in Little Rock. And I had no earthly idea what he wanted to talk with me about, and so we went and had lunch. And it turned out that he wants to be a mentor. He wants to mentor a kid. And so they have to go through an extensive background check, of course, and meet with us, go through training with us before they're allowed to be able to meet with their kid. But it's just people from all walks of life. They see, just by looking at what the problem is today in our culture, is the breakdown of the family. I mean, it's evident. And it just seems like there is, I guess using a church term, a revival of people just wanting to reach out and help and coach and teach some of these kids.
So someone like me who doesn't hunt, fish, do anything outdoorsy, I mean, is there a place for me in this?
That's a great question that I've never really been asked, and I don't know if there's a place for you. You would have to check your heart to say, maybe God is going to stretch me and to be able to see where these kids have a need and be able to step into that need. Maybe you don't like to fish, but maybe you like to go outdoors or take a walk or something like that. Or maybe you're just a homebody. I don't know, but I do know this. I do know that where there is a need, if a person will step into that need, God puts it on people's hearts, like your heart or someone else that might not have a heart for to be out in the outdoors. And something happens deep inside of these people when I'm able to share the ministry aspect of reaching out to these kids.
So over the years, you've been passionate about this and you've thrown yourself into this wholeheartedly. One of the things we were talking about before we started filming was the plastic box. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, if you're in your 40s, 50s, and 60s, you will remember John Travolta did a movie, The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. And so I was up one night thinking about how we could raise some funds for Cubs kids, and I thought about living in a plastic bubble. It morphed into a plastic box. So I woke my wife up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I said, Stacy, I have the next fundraiser that I'm going to do. I'm going to live in a plastic box. And she just looked at me and said, "You're nuts," and rolled over and went to bed. Well, fast forward, there was a man who owns a company called Mr. Plastic here in Little Rock, and he donated all the plexiglass for this box. And we put it on a 16-foot trailer. It was 8 feet high, and I lived in it for 38 days without coming out of it. And so everyone always wants to know, well, what about the bathroom? I had a tent with a bathroom in there and a shower in there, and I had a dog door that my lab could come in and out of it, and they could hand me food in there. But I lived in that for 38 days to raise $100,000, and the goal was $50,000. And then I started thinking, well, if I'm going to spend this much time in this box, let's try to do something big. And big goals like that are scary because you don't know how long you're going to live in that box. Would it take you 6 months? Because you can't come out of the box because you told people you're not coming out of the box until you raise a certain amount of money. And so, yeah, the box was an absolute trying time in my life. But I was able to do a lot of self-reflection. I was able to finish a book that I just published. And so a lot of good things happened during that downtime. And of course, we raised a lot of money to be able to help kids.
Now, but there was also something behind the madness of living in a box. There was purpose to demonstrate a bigger story.
Yeah. You know, the kids in these low-income areas that live in maybe a home without a father or without a mother, being raised by a grandmother or a friend of a friend because their mom and dad are in prison or they're on drugs. These kids are able to see all of their friends at school do stuff and go places, and even as simple as to go to Chick-fil-A. We had a young man that we took on a hunting outing the other day, and it was the first time that he had ever been to a Chick-fil-A. And so as I was inside of that box, I started to reflect on the kids who don't have an opportunity just because they don't have an adult that won't step up or can't step up or haven't been able to step up, or maybe they didn't even know how to step up because nobody showed them how to step up. And so, you know, being in a box and looking at life going by, and you can't interact with life. You can't get out there and do those things that other people are doing. And so there was some great symbolism in the stunts that we do.
And so another one was, I mean, everyone remembers what we all called Flag Island on the river. Right. You camped out there for a bit, so.
You know, I saw that island about 2 years before there were even any flags on it. And I knew that there was going to be a tremendous opportunity, not just to raise funds, but to get the brand Cubs Kids out there and really force people to our website to find out. And so I noticed that the island was disappearing, and I knew that I had to go. And so Todd Jacobian is a good friend of mine that works for Channel 7. And I said, if I'm going to live on this island, do I do it in March, April, or May? And he said, first, don't live on the island. He said, that's crazy. But he said, if you're going to do it in March, because the rain in April and May is really going to get you. And so we went the 1st of March, and I put a tent up, and I put a big CubsKids.com sign that was ginormous for people to be able to read it from the 430 bridge, and said we were going to live on the island for 3 weeks or $30,000. About halfway in, a tornado came through and knocked down my tent and actually knocked down the sign, which the sign was a tremendous feat to put it up out in the middle of nowhere. My son, Matt, helped me tremendously do that. And so when the storm passed and I saw the devastation, it really took the wind out of me. And I really thought about tapping out. But I have a wife that is my hero. And she was the one that won me to Christ when I became a Christian. And she's my hero. And she said, you can't tap out because you'll regret it. And so I had a buddy that put his boat in way down by Redfield, and he motored all the way up through 2 locking dams and helped me put the sign back up. So we put the sign back up. I bought another tent, and we repitched, if you will, and finished strong and was able to raise the money for the kids. Yeah, craziness. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's tough.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
All those crazy animals in the river and all that. So you do these things because you're passionate about these kids. Tell me some stories about some of the kids that you've gotten to experience, because I think it's really important for people to realize that most of these kids are in a situation by no power of their own. And so the stereotypes we put on a lot of these kids that are growing up in this situation, there's nothing they did to put themselves there. And I think it's just important for people to hear what a difference one person can make.
Well, let me tell you about Raylan. Raylan is a little kid who I met 4 years ago in a housing project over in Southwest Little Rock. And Raylan was a kid whose dad is not there. He's on a tugboat in the Mississippi River. His mom is doing her best to keep Raylan out of trouble, but Raylan found himself always in trouble with the teacher. because Raylan's one of those kids with a humongous personality, and he is this kid with this huge heart, and he's, other than my children, Raylan is the most special kid that I've ever met in my life. He just needed to be able to redirect a lot of that energy that he has, and make sure that he's focused. Raylan has a mom, and there are a lot of single moms out there that are trying their best to make sure that these kids are staying out of trouble. And I get a lot of single moms contact us through our website. Can you please help me? Their father's in prison, no one's around. I'm trying to raise these kids, but I don't know how to do what you said that you're going to do. And so I've watched Raylan be this young kid, this young boy that came into our lives, and he's my Cubs kid. I have one myself, and Raylan's my kid. And he has become a part of my family. He has stolen every single heart in my family. He actually had Thanksgiving dinner with us this last year, and the laughter around that table based on the stories of this kid is funny, but it'll break your heart. Raylan told me at the age of 9 that he drove his dad from Tupelo, Mississippi to Pine Bluff, Arkansas at 9. I said, Raylan, why did you drive your dad from Tupelo, Mississippi to Pine Bluff, Arkansas? He said, because my dad was drunk and didn't have anybody to drive. And he said ever since then he's been driving his dad when he's with his dad gets drunk. Raylan, 9 years old, is driving a vehicle. Well, what do you say to a kid like that? You know, you can't do that, Raylan. But then he has a father who has no direction in life other than to just survive. And that's what he does. And so Raylan is in this world with me that is, okay, structure, stay out of trouble, do what's right. We're going to go have fun. We're going to go and experience stuff in the outdoors that a lot of people will never experience. Do this, do right, act right, make the right choices and decisions. And then when he sees his dad once every 8 months, he's driving him from Tupelo, Mississippi to Pine Bluff, Arkansas, because his dad's drunk. You know, there's a little kid named Carlos. Carlos is a little Hispanic kid who's the runt, and he keeps complaining about how everyone is taller than me and everyone's bigger than me, and I'm not growing. And Carlos came into our program, and he was struggling in school. I mean, he was flunking out of school. And so we got him in the program, started helping him with his homework and grades, and getting him back where he needed to be in the classroom. And then his dad was released out of prison, and then the second day when he was out, he was killed in a motorcycle wreck. And so Carlos is one of those kids that it's all structure with us. It's all make the right decisions and choices and all these things. And then you tell him if you do right, then good things are going to happen to you. And then he comes up to you and asks you the question, well, you told me that if you do right, then good things are going to happen. Why did my dad get killed in a motorcycle wreck 2 days after he was released out of prison? Well, I couldn't tell him that your dad was under the influence and doing things that he shouldn't have been doing on that motorcycle. And so you sit there and you cry with a kid, because that's all you can do. And then try to get this kid through life. And that's one thing that separates us. Let's say you want to come in and you want to be a mentor. I won't let you be a mentor if you tell me that you won't mentor this kid for life or as long as you live. And we tell these kids, look, we want to be in your life. We want to be there when you get married. We want to be there when you have your first kid. We want to be there when you're struggling in your marriage and you think that you're going to leave your wife. We want to be there when your mom or dad passes. We want to be there through all of life's events. And the only way to do that is to build a relationship with these kids. They want you there if you show them that you care.
So what's the best way for someone that's like, oh my goodness, I really want to jump in on this, to really kind of get involved?
I would encourage anyone that wants to get involved to go to our website. It's covskids.com, covskids.com, and just look on our website, go through it. There's an extensive questionnaire if you want to become a mentor, if you want your child to be a part of it. We first started this and we said, okay, let's do 10 to 15 or 16. And then I had to regroup and say, if we don't get these kids at 7 or 8 years old, then we're probably not going to get these kids when they're 15. Mm-hmm. And so we had to redo this whole process of this 501c3 to make sure that we were targeting these younger kids. I would say go online and take a look at our website. But let me tell you a funny story.
Uh-oh.
All right. We took these two cousins out. This was the first really hunt that my son and I were going to take these two kids, the first hunt that we were ever on as Cubs kids. And we were fired up, man. We were going to take these kids turkey hunting. And they had never really been out before. Of course, we shot the guns before to get them comfortable with the guns and gun safety and all of those things that come with going out. And so we set the blind up the day before. We knew where the turkeys were going to come, and we put the seats in there. We had the one seat for the one kid, and the second kid was going to sit behind him and watch, and then we had the cameraman was going to be over here, and we had everything set up in the blind. It was go time, man. About 6 o'clock in the morning, the alarm clock went off, and kids were already up. I heard them staying up all night back there doing whatever they were doing. And we get in the blind and we sit down, and the sun is about to crack through the clouds, and the one kid who was up front started coughing really loud. Well, the kid behind him said, "You can't cough. If you cough, we're not going to see any turkeys." And so the kid said, "All right, I'll try to stop." Now remember, they're cousins, okay? And so the turkeys fly down, we can hear them, and this kid's coughing. And his cousin said, "If you cough one more time, I'm going to knock you out." Well, I'm thinking to myself, surely he's not going to knock him out, right? That's just a figure of speech, you know, a term of endearment. He's just giving him a warning, right? Well, the kid coughed, and the next thing you know, his cousin hit him in the back of the head, and then the other cousin drops the gun, and then we have two lions fighting in this blind. And people say, "Well, Tommy, that's the worst thing I've ever heard in my life." And I said, "Those are our kids. Those are the kids that nobody wants to take out. You want to know why? Because they fight. Those are the kids that nobody wants to spend any time with. You want to know why? Because they get in trouble. Because they cuss when they're not supposed to. They act out. And those are Cubs kids." Now, we try not to have fist fights, you know, and we had to send them to their room and separate them, and there was consequences. The kid that threw the first punch, he wasn't able to go the next year. And so there are consequences to your choices and decisions. You want to punch him, okay, but this is what's going to happen to you, you know.
Yeah. A fist fight in a blind with firearms.
Yeah, not a good scene. But that's our kids, man.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the kids that we reach.
So that is totally amazing. Tommy, thank you so much for taking the time to just come over and just share about Cubs Kids. And what's that website once again?
It's covskids.com, okay. covskids.com.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Every Arkansan podcast. Tommy's story about just the impact you can have when you invest in someone's lives. I don't know if you could see it, but there were tears rolling down his face as he was telling the story. It means so much, not only for the person you invest in, but also for you doing the investing. Get out there, chase your God-given dream.